Inside Out on freedomslips.com and the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net, so push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for $85 a month. If you're new to Shiny Side Out, welcome aboard. This is a tinfoil hat zone, so keep your arms within the vehicle, turn off your personal reality averters, and please, no flash photography. We're glad you're on board, and thank you very much for inviting us into your lives. So follow, subscribe, or otherwise for the appropriate social media platforms. We're halfway through show number, and the show number is 442.
240 and 400.
And we ask that you get yourself some great merchandise from the station's website, maybe an EMP-proof thumb drive with survival documents, seed packs, or follow the instructions carefully if you're ordering and understand your customs importation regulations, so that you don't become disappointed. To avoid disappointment, turn off your mainstream media feeds as well. That'll help. You should listen to us more.
Yeah.
There is also a live stream, and I will post that into the chat room. If you don't know where the chat room is and you're watching this on YouTube, you need to go to freedomslips.com. Freedom Slips or revolution.radio, same website, and there's a chat room there, and you can donate to the station to get access to the archives, or you can purchase merchandise. And look, we thank the late Night Hawk for setting this platform up and providing us the time. We never thought we'd be here by the end of the first year, let alone working in our 10th year now. So thank you very much. And to all of the crew who works behind the scenes, it's like an award speech maker. And I'd like to thank everyone that I've ever met. And I'd like to thank everyone who's in the admin at the station. Thank you for all of those people in the chat room. Thank you very much for contributing. There's so much discussion in there tonight, and you can be part of that, and you can ask us questions while we're on air. It's an interactive experience. There we go. Got through the intro and the second intro for the second hour. Now, from what I understand, Mackie, we are in show 442, and we're talking about physical, biological artifacts, and this is part 5 in the series. And if you're a fan of ours on YouTube, you'll notice that now we've split it into 2 halves. So we have one half 1 hour show, and then we have a news package, and then we have the 1 hour show package. All right, to make it easier to consume. Let's hope that put some comments below, subscribe, click the bell as well, if you can do that. And we have a Patreon account that if you'd like to support us, you can. Just you know how to use Patreon, and we're working towards making some content, Patreon only content, if that makes sense to anyone, except for those people who are really young, who already know what the hell I'm talking about. So why am I saying the word Patreon over and over again? So, look, like I said in the intro, look, we really are glad you're on board, and we're talking about things that can't be dismissed, that are physical items, and this one biological as well. We're talking about things that make it difficult indeed to be ignored, and yet people refute their authenticity. They refuse to believe all the refs. They refuse to believe that they are significant, and say you need extraordinary proof for extraordinary claims. And Meki's answer is
no. You need the same proof, exactly the same level of proof.
Yes, you would for anything.
Proof is proof.
That's right.
Like, okay, okay. Well, let me give an example. Okay, I say this apple is in fact a coconut. Okay, well, prove it. Okay, well, it looks like a coconut. It tastes like a coconut. And, if I plant it, I'll get a coconut tree. Okay, thank you. If I say, oh, no, this apple is not an apple, it's an alien coconut. Okay, it's an alien coconut. So the same level of proof applies. I will grow an alien coconut tree eventually. It is a nonsense to say that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. Extraordinary claims require the exact same kind of proof, because who, Dave, decides what an extraordinary claim is? Who does? The Earth is not flat. No, that's an extraordinary claim, Dave. I need extraordinary proof. What does that even mean, extraordinary proof? Tell me.
But we have to throw out NASA's imagery and anything that's ever been in space. All the satellite pictures, for that matter.
But I would see. It's just a skeptic. Or skeptic is probably the wrong word. It's just an armchair skeptic's throwaway line. Oh, you've got extraordinary claim. I need extraordinary proof. I want someone to explain to me what that means. Because the thing is, like, let's say I say, okay, there's alien life. There's extraterrestrials, whatever. I'm saying there here it is. There's. Mm-hmm. The proof for that would be to find extraterrestrial alien life. That's it. That's the proof. I don't have to find 1,000 different species of alien life, or 1 million, or a quadrillion. Just find the one, and that's my proof. Thank you very much. It is complete nonsense to make that statement. It's a hyperbole statement. It's a statement that it discourages people from investigating things that are beyond the so-called normal. That's what this is. It's designed as a statement to steer you away from the troublesome questions that you want to ask. Yeah. Okay? It really, in case you didn't realize, it really upsets me.
Yeah, just a little. So Mickey, I've been watching a lot of the Tic Tac UFO, and delving into that. And apparently, there's Nick Pope has been talking about this as well, and there's hundreds of reports from the Navy and Air Force pilots who have encountered these objects since the same period, like about 2002 on. They've been counting them, and they said they're out there all the time. It wasn't a one-off. It wasn't just those 2 events that were documented and leaked. In fact, it's a lot. In fact, it's so much that just a single visible Tic Tac UFO was enough to say, everyone put their hands up and go, hey, it wasn't ours. And I don't know. Good luck with whatever you find. It is. To they're there all the time. My goodness, that means our airspace is occupied with something else.
But we've gone further in this investigation now, with the airing of Secrets of the Skinwalker Range last year.
Yeah.
Sorry, this year. It was filmed last year. Was aired early this year, and I'm hoping there's a second season to it, because I want to know what happens in that place. And it was what they're doing there, and what they have released is unprecedented, completely unprecedented. Physical effects on people, triangulation of signals and broadcasts, and if there ever was a smoking gun, forget Tic Tac for a second. What they found on Skinwalker Range is a whole level of crazy beyond that, but indisputable, because there it is. There's physical evidence, and this is what we're talking about today as well. Physical evidence, right? You cannot argue with it, because there it is. Like, if somebody made up the pyramids, then you go, okay, well, you just made it up. No, clearly, nobody could build pyramids like that. If you look at the Cyclopean buildings that were left elsewhere in the world, then if you only ever heard stories about it, it's just a story. You don't have to worry about it. It's a story. Who cares? But we're talking about things that are physically in existence. You can't argue them away, right? And clearly, somebody did it. Somebody built it. Somebody made it. There's a physical thing here you can touch, mechanism of Antikythera, the Star Child skull, it goes on. The list is very long, actually, right? These are physical pieces of evidence. You can't armchair skeptic it away, right? So what you do is you dismiss it. You call it a hoax, or you call it misrepresented, or you ask for even more proof on top of the proof that you've asked for in the first place.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not enough. What? So let me give you a simple example of what I mean here, right? So some time ago, Robert Shaw, or Shaw, how it should be pronounced, he's a Harvard-trained geologist. That's his job. That's what he does. And Anthony West comes up to him and says, "Hey, look, can you help me out with this? Look at the Sphinx. What do you think has created these weather pattern, or the pattern, the weather pattern of the stone?" And Robert Shaw goes, "Oh, let me investigate this." He looks at it. He's a geologist. That's what he does. Okay, well, clearly this is water weathering. This is not wind or sand. This is water. and not just water from flooding, but this is rainwater coming down.
Erosion.
Right? Now, the last time, erosion, rainwater erosion. And the last time there was sufficient rainfall in this part of the world, as far as we know, to do this was about 12, 13,000 years ago, thereabouts. So clearly, therefore, this thing is as old as that, the Sphinx, that is. And then he goes ahead and shows his geologist friends to not the whole Sphinx, just the cutout piece of the stones, and they don't know what they're looking at. They just look at the weathering pattern, and all of them said, "Yeah, look, clearly this is weather erosion, due to rainfall. Clearly, and this is why, and there's certain reasons for it." And he goes, "Thank you very much." And then he shows them the whole picture, and they say, "Well, don't mention my name. You go to anyone." And then I was watching the debate between Mark Lehner, Zahi Hawass, and Robert Schoch, and Anthony West wasn't allowed. John Anthony West, he was not a man of letters, or so he didn't have a letter behind his name. I do. I have letters behind my name. Woo! So I can actually talk to these people. But they argue. I think Robert Schoch goes, "Well, here it is. This is my evidence. It's physical evidence. You can't. I mean, you can stand on your head. It's not going to go away." And Mark Lehner said, "Well, where's your corroborating evidence? Not only does he disregard the evidence that he was just given. Now he wants corroborating evidence. Show me the pot shards, or show me the historical record, or the written record that makes reference to this." And of course, you're talking 12, 13,000 years ago. It just doesn't exist. It's too long ago, right?
That's right.
But the piece of evidence that is still there, but it's no longer enough. You see, now you want more evidence. That's the point I'm trying to make earlier.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I see your evidence, and okay, but I'm going to disregard it because it doesn't fit in with my narrative, and now I want more evidence. So you've given me this evidence. Yeah,
same argument. Do you know what they asked for, Mickey? There's no stone chips or tools that we can find in the construction of this. So, and it's like, so what? So yeah, that's where do you go from that? So what? There it is.
Yeah,
we're looking at it.
If you really want to date something, right? What you would need to do is you lift the stones up and you look for organic material underneath it. Because it's no good finding organic material near it. That could have been put there 10,000 years after it was built.
That's right.
You have to lift the stones up, look for organic material underneath, and then there's a fair chance that is actually around the date range that you're looking for, right? Because it's notoriously hard to date inorganic material. It is. It's not impossible. It's just harder. It's a lot harder. You can work out when it was worked.
Is from the date of it, the stone's creation is a date you'll find. You can't tell when it was cut.
Oh, that's the thing. Right? That's essentially it. And then you've got relative dating methods, which are usually exactly which layer of the earth was found. Then that's goodness as well. But again, there are problems with that. So it's really only organic material, and it's got to do with the decay of radioactive isotopes, really.
Yes.
And we know what the decay rate. And the problem with that, of course, is that it assumes that the decay rate stays the same. It doesn't vary. We also know what the starting point was. We assume a static environment, etc., etc. So there are a whole bunch of issues even with that dating system. So, but we come across these pieces of evidence, and we shared some with you in the past shows. And I'm going to share with you here one that is a treasure trove of evidence, if you will. And this is a book that was written by Michael Cremo and Richard Thompson. And yes, they are associated with Vedic religion and etc. But I mean, it presents an alternative to the both Christian, I guess, view as well as to the established scientific view of what happened in the world. Is it as valid as any other? Yeah. In the evidence of absolute evidence, any well-founded theory is as valid as any other well-founded theory, right? And it's really, really important. And the first piece of information here we're going to give you is actually from Wikipedia itself, because that's as far as I'm concerned, Wikipedia is a fairly mainstream kind of institution, right? I mean, I've tried to edit articles that was completely denied, and I go, okay, fair enough. So we want to give you here what Wikipedia says about that particular work. And I also want to point out here a couple of things around the problems that the experts find with the evidence presented in that particular book. Now, the book itself I have, and if you're not really into scientific texts or into, like really, I mean, I'm talking about stuffy science, don't read it. Don't, because it'll just kill you. It's a really hard read. If you like university books and doing that kind of dusty research, you'll love it, right? But if you're looking for an interesting read, this isn't it. The context and the content, yes, very much, right? But the actual text is really hard work to get through. They've created an abridged version, which we'll talk about. But if you want to go to the original, go ahead. Now, the book itself is called Forbidden Archaeology, and it's the hidden history of the human race is the subtitle or the subscript. Mm-hmm. And it was published in 1993, okay? And it's here in Wikipedia. It's called a pseudo-archaeological book by Michael A. Cremo and Richard L. Thompson, written in association with the Bhakti Vedanta Institute of ISKCON. Cremo states that the book has over 900 pages of well-documented evidence suggesting that modern man did not evolve from ape man, but instead has coexisted with apes for millions of years, and that the scientific establishment has suppressed the fossil evidence for or of extreme human antiquity. Cremo identifies as a Vedic archaeologist, since he believes his findings support the story of humanity described in the Vedas. Cremo's work has garnered interest from Hindu creationists, paranormalists, and theosophists. He says a knowledge filter, confirmation bias, is the cause of his suppression. I happen to be of a very similar opinion to Mr. Cremo for various reasons, and if you are following the hypothesis, you'll understand that. And it's an alternative view. Yes, absolutely. Is it therefore less valid? Not really. So the academic analysis is as follows. In a 20-page review in Social Studies of Science, Joe Wodak and David Holroyd described the book's argument. Early paleoanthropologists in the late 19th century and early 20th interpreted much empirical information as evidence favoring the existence of human beings in the tertiary period, which was about 65 million to 2.6 million years ago. That's the tertiary. But starting from about the 1930s, paleoanthropologists turned to the view that human beings first evolved in the next era, the Pleistocene, 2.6 million to 11,700 years ago. The older evidence, Cremo and Thompson say, was never shown bad. It was just reinterpreted in such a way as to rule out tertiary humans. So what Cremo and Thompson have done is comb the early literature in great, indeed impressive detail and argue on the basis of their historical study that the older arguments were never satisfactorily disproved and should be reconsidered with open minds. Ultimately, the book questions the Darwinian evolutionary assumptions underlying modern paleoanthropology, as do I and as does Dave. Meow, yes, this is David and Mackie. Hey there in the chat room. Now, this is important. Listen very carefully. Anthropologist Colin Groves states that 19th century finds were generally found by accident and by amateurs, and were thus generally lacking proper documentation of crucial contextual information, and that the dates assigned were therefore suspect. Cremo and Thompson failed to take account of this, he says, and seem to want to accord equal value to all finds. Groves also states that their discussion of radiometric dating fails to take account of the ongoing refinement of these methods and the resulting fact that later results are more reliable than earlier ones. He concludes that the book is only superficially scholarly. Okay, so let's just make a statement here about amateurs. The greatest archaeological finds were made by complete amateurs. Thomas Schliemann, a German, read the Iliad and the epic of that Homer wrote, the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? 2,000-year-old Greek texts, and he followed where Homer, the poet, the author, said Troy would be. So Homer said Troy should be here, which was Asia Minor, which is now Turkey, and he went there, and lo and behold, he found it exactly where Homer, the poet, said it would be. Amateur. He wasn't an accredited archaeologist. Göbekli Tepe was found by a farmer trying to remove a tree stump. In fact, most of the archaeological finds were found when we were digging foundations for houses, tunnels for the subway or the sewer, excavations for parking garages, etc., etc., as well as, especially in the 19th century, as we're digging for iron, coal, gold, diamonds, whatever. All right? And the way we were digging in those days was by hand, with pickaxes and shovels. So when something was found, it was actually found by people working on the coal face. Do you know how many people work on the coal face today?
No.
0, except for China and other places like. But for the most part, industrial scale mining is completely automated, right? For the most part, and there's no people with pickaxes and shovels anymore. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this these mine sites, especially in Australia.
Because my brother-in-law is a mining engineer.
Bingo, and I've been on site supporting IT equipment myself. But these are massive operations.
The closest any person gets is the drilling of the rock face or the face to lay charges.
Correct. And then, yeah, exactly right. And then, we're talking like several city blocks at once are detonated, right? And then, crushed down, and the minerals are extracted. Any potential evidence you might find it is completely destroyed.
Go on. Yeah. And what isn't destroyed by the explosion is destroyed through the process of crushing it.
Correct. That's exactly right. Now, so let's be clear, right? Now, I'm going back to the text here. Reviewing the book in the French journal L'Anthropologie, paleontologist Marilyn Patou-Matis wrote that the book is a provocative work that raises the problem of the influence of the dominant ideas of a time period on scientific research. These ideas can compel researchers to publish their analyses according to the conceptions permitted by the scientific community. It's interesting that this is a francophone person saying this, not an anglophone. The evidence Kramer and Thompson bring forward for the very ancient origin of humanity, she wrote, isn't always convincing, far from it, but the documentary richness of this work, more sociological than scientific, isn't to be overlooked. Different reviewers, for example, Federer and Wodak, compared the book to works by Christian creationists. Right in the British Journal for the History of Science, Dr. Tim Murray wrote, this is a piece of creation science which, while not based on a need to present a Christian alternative, manifests many of the same types of arguments, including accusing opponents of unscientifically trying to defend their biases, alleging they're acting conspiratorially, and explaining the currently marginal position of your alternative as being the result of prejudice, conspiracy, and manipulation, rather than any fault of the theory itself. Murray is head of the Archaeology Department of La Trobe University in Melbourne, Australia. Writing in Geoarchaeology, anthropologist Kenneth L. Feder says, while decidedly anti-evolutionary in perspective, this work is not the ordinary variety of anti-evolutionism in form, content, or style. In distinction to the usual brand of such writing, the authors use original sources and the book is well written. Further, the overall tone of the work is far superior to that exhibited in ordinary creationist literature. Nonetheless, I suspect that creationism is at the root of the author's argument, albeit a sort of not commonly seen before. So, to be very clear, right, it is not necessarily a creationist argument that's being made in the book yet. The book makes the argument that the human race is a lot older than we give it credit for. And it looks at evidence of that antiquity, and well beyond antiquity, in fact. Okay, they don't speculate as to how it is that human beings have been around for so long. And I think, Dave, we said this before, and I want to say it again. Once a species has evolved let's call it evolved or adapted or whatever you're going to call it, right, to a certain point, and I think we have to, once again, look at punctual equilibrium. We have to once again look at, is there a guiding principle at work? All right. But I'll talk about that in a second. Then, why would it change further? Why would the species change further? Sharks and crocodiles haven't changed in hundreds of millions of years. The coelacanth, again, my most favorite animal in the world, hasn't changed in 65 million years. And for 65 million years, we haven't had a single piece of evidence it existed. There is a gap for the coelacanth in the fossil record that is 65 million years long. The last time we saw a fossil of a coelacanth, we found it together with dinosaur fossils. That's right. Which are roughly 65 million years old. And then we see it swimming around in the Indian Ocean, just off the coast of Madagascar. That's a fact. That's a fact. You can do what you like. It's a fact. It's the same fish. It hasn't changed at all. Okay? In 65 million years.
Crocodiles,
so
sharks,
human beings,
you name them, right?
Yeah.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Look at the stuff in amber.
Exactly. 100% correct. So human beings, and what I'm saying is, I don't think we are Oh, this is gonna get me a lot of haters.
Uh-oh.
I don't think we are the original human race. Far from it. We might be number 3, 4, or 5. Who knows, right? And I do believe in interventionism as well. I think that there's plenty of evidence for that. There's plenty of evidence for catastrophism as well.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, right, it comes down to if everything is completely Darwinian in nature, and I've said this before and I'll say it again just to make the point, because this is an important point, and then I'm going to throw it to my esteemed colleague here. We are, according to Darwinian evolutionary theory, we are the result of completely random mutations of our genetic material. Okay, completely random. There's no guiding principle at hand, because you can't have it both ways. You cannot have it both ways. Either there is a guiding principle or some kind of force that moves the development of species along, or there is not. And I don't care what you call that force. You call it God or you call it nature. I don't give a hoot. But if you assign agency to that force, you're no longer in the realm of Darwinian evolutionism. You're not. You've moved. If random mutations are what has brought us to this place, then I will say it again, I've said it before, where are the mountains and mountains of fossils of evolutionary mutations that didn't go anywhere? And why don't we see them anymore? If truly these random mutations, no matter how infinitesimally small they are, happen, there should be, the vast majority of them should be completely useless. To get a positive mutation, one that, moves you forward in the world and gives your species an advantage, right, would be vanishingly small. If you look at the size of our genes, if you look at how many gene pairs we have, and look at just how much information is encoded there, but that's not the case. We don't see.
I've got more for you, Mickey.
Oh,
think about this: the Earth's never seen so many people. So if we had this many random mutations, you would imagine that there'd be 7.7 billion or almost 7.8 billion people with differences that, when faced with the next challenge, only some of them will have been successful.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Where's that?
Yeah.
I don't see that as a thing.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Or people say, but you don't look at the long picture, Dave. If you look at millions and millions of years, hundreds of millions of years, then you would see that. Then my argument comes back to, well, where are the failed random mutations? Because random, by definition, says it's random. It doesn't follow anything specific. Because as soon as you say, oh no, it's not random, the environment influences the genes. How would the genes know anything about the environment? What is the mechanism here? And who put the genes together in such a way that they would respond to the environment, right?
Unless there was just those 5 lines of code, Mickey, that allow you to save the successful traits for next time. And they get locked in for the next replication. That could be a way, wait. There could be a way that allows some kind of change to be reactive to the environment, so that could support the punctuated equilibrium, which means that every time there's a lot of change, there's a lot of change for us to survive.
But how did you get that? And
exactly.
And how do you get the reactiveness
to 46 pairs method?
Yeah, well, see, this is the
how
thing.
did that even happen?
So
you can't go back too far, because we have 48 chromosome pairs there.
Yeah. But as soon as you ask these questions, they will. People will tell you, oh no, you what you're saying is unscientific, and Darwinian evolutionary theory is a fact. No, it's a theory. It's a good theory. I have the highest respect for a person that would put themselves out there in the face of the then dogma, which was really creationism, right? And God, and say no, it's not. It's right up there with saying the Earth is not flat. It's extremely difficult, and you would put yourself out to ridicule. I mean, at the time, people would draw Darwin as with a monkey body sitting in a tree, right? And because the evidence was not forthcoming for Darwinism, because the fossil record did not bear out the actual. We've drawn all these trees and we say this and that, but we actually haven't got the missing links, right? We don't have them, which is why I come back to a punctuated equilibrium. And potentially, maybe there's a guiding force. We've made a great mistake many years ago when we decided to separate the spiritual from the physical. That was a huge mistake of Western philosophy. And it's really only Western science and philosophy that has that problem. No one else does. Eastern philosophy is very much still combined thing. But yes, look, this is where we are, right? So, Dave, I think other reviewers, I think is where we're at.
Oh, I know exactly where we were.
Okay, good man.
Other reviewers also wrote of the book as being doctrinally motivated. Murray wrote that far from being a disinterested analyst, Forbidden Archaeology is designed to demolish the case for biological and chemical evolution and to advance the case for a Vedic alternative. Wodak and Holroyd wrote that although the authors don't directly come out with a Vedic alternative, the evidence is construed in the silent light of Vedic metaphysics. Some reviewers, that's Federer and Wodak and Holroyd, we have a town here called Holroyd, have vaulted the book for attacking the current picture of human evolution, but not offering an alternative paradigm. The book's authors openly acknowledge the Vedic inspiration of their research and make what Federer calls the reasonable request that the Vedic derivation of the theoretical outlook not disqualify it. But Federer says, when you attempt to deconstruct a well-accepted paradigm, it is reasonable to expect that a new paradigm is suggested in its place. The book doesn't do this, instead promising that the paradigm will appear in a forthcoming volume. Wodak and Holroyd, but this, Wodak and Holroyd say, is not of much help to the readers of Forbidden Archaeology. Federer suggests that the authors left the paradigm out of the book because of their ulterior motive. Wishing to appear entirely scientific, the authors hope to avoid a detailed discussion of their own beliefs, since I would contend these are based on a creationist view, but not the kind we are all familiar with. Like fundamentalist Christian creationists, they avoid talking about the religious content of their perspective. In 2003, Cremo, writing alone, published the book detailing the Vedic paradigm Human Devolution in 2003.
I've got that book too.
Oh, have you? Ooh. The reasons for its late appearance, Cremo wrote in the introduction, have more to do with the time it takes to research and write such a book, rather than any desire to avoid a detailed discussion of a Vedic alternative to Darwinism. Several reviewers, and this is Murray, Federer, Wodak and Holroyd, say that Forbidden Archaeology proposes a conspiracy theory and argue that science in general and paleoanthropology in particular are more open to than the book's authors would have us believe. Dissenting voices in the literature evidences the fact that there is not some conspiratorial cover-up in paleoanthropology. Federer, in his review, notes that neither Thompson nor Cremo is an archaeologist or a paleoanthropologist. He says they fail to give due credit to the advances in technique that distinguishes science in recent times from that of the 19th century. And he brings forward various objections to their analysis of eoliths, stone artifacts sometimes regarded as tools. Wodak and Holroyd also criticised the book's discussion of eoliths. Moreover, they say, although granting the book's theory that anatomically modern humans coexisted with more primitive forms would certainly alter our current thinking about human history, it would not invalidate orthodox evolutionary theory.
So just to be very clear, we now know that we coexisted with other species. Not only coexist with other species of human or hominoids or hominids, but rather with other branches of our own species. This is a fact now. We know this, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we had to, because we've got their DNA. Most of their DNA in us, all of them, right? Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they couldn't have coexisted to form that. Sorry, they must have coexisted to form that. Otherwise, they would have just been isolates and disappeared. We never would have seen them again. And they're not all back to back. They were parallel. So they weren't. It wasn't waterfall, Mickey, right? It wasn't one, then the next, then the next. These are all, parallel lines. So the book itself is, now back to the text, the book is more than 900 pages long. The authors go in for overkill in terms of swamping the reader with detail. Because they'd ask, Mickey, just as a side, the opponents would be saying, where's the detail, if they didn't put enough detail in.
Yeah.
This a strategy which may persuade readers to lack access, who lack access to the relevant sources and have no special expertise in paleoanthropology, and are therefore likely to assume that such thorough exposition of the historical terrain must signify accuracy and equity. Oh, that's a fair statement, but let's see. Wodak and Holroyd say that forbidden archaeology is one-sided. It's one-sided because, despite its great length, it does not discuss evidence favourable to the evolutionary model of human origins, nor the work of recent paleoanthropologists. Murray wrote... Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, just to that point.
Yep.
But that wasn't the purpose of the book.
No.
The book was putting forward a competing theory. I mean, all the other books out there in the world written by all the other paleoanthropologists and so forth are, in fact, propounding that theory. So if somebody wanted an alternative view, one only had to read another book and then make a comparison. That satisfies one's curiosity. Because the thing is that the evidence to bring forward is being completely disregarded by the scientific community as showing that the human race is much older than we think it is. Completely disregarded. Ever since the Leakeys, came out with Lucy, that was pretty much it. And all the other evidence was that's anecdotal. It's non-expert witnesses put it down, and etc. etc. It's really quite astounding that people will make this argument. But sorry, go on with the text.
You could argue that Bill Gates wasn't effectively a coder when if you argue that he wrote DOS, he wasn't.
He didn't. He stole it.
Yeah, we know that. He wasn't in the design of the machine. He wasn't a trained CPU motherboard manufacturer, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because coming up with the first item doesn't mean you were trained in anything. But guess what? Here you go. You did it. So Murray wrote, back to the text, I have no doubt that there will be some who will read this book and profit from it. Certainly, as profit in ideas fashion and knowledge. Certainly, it provides the historian of archaeology with a useful compendium of case studies in the history and sociology of scientific knowledge, which can be used to foster debate within archaeology about how to describe the epistemology. Hey, one of one's discipline. On another level, the book joins others from creation science and New Age philosophy as a body of works which seek to address members of a public alienated from science, either because it has become too arcane or because it has ceased to suit some in search of meaning in their lives.
So I read the book, and like I said, it's really, really tough to read. It's a very dry text, okay? And it really is just a compendium of case studies.
Medical journal dry?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. No, 100%.
Yeah.
It is. It's just painful to read. But there's an abridged version. I think it's called Everything Goes Wrong or something like that.
Finally got to abridge the book Forbidden Archaeology.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can go there. I also read Human Devolution, and the argument there is, and this is actually funny, that they, because actually I think it's I think we spoke about the Golden Age. We had a show cycle on the Golden Age, I think, Dave. Virtually every culture speaks of a Golden Age, and we've been devolving ever since. So we've come down from a height to where we are today. Right? And it's not just an Indian concept; it's across different cultures, and this world cycles is as alive in South America as it is in North America, as it is in India, as it is in the rest of Asia. That we live through cyclical worlds that are destroyed one after the other. Completely disregarded by science, even though we see the ravages of these destructive events on the planet. We still see them. We see tools down events. We see things that we can't do today, but someone in the past did them, right? And it's really important to understand that we are looking at this through lenses, various lenses. And people have vested interests in their careers. And I come back to this one example. There are many others, but this one example illustrates the best what I'm talking about. Elizabeth Steen McIntyre, she found something and it didn't fit in with the paradigm by only 15,000 years, and she was completely barred from her profession, which was archaeology and paleoanthropology in the Americas. There is a confirmation bias. There is a filter that exists in academia today. People will protect their careers, and they will protect their livelihoods and the things they have built a reputation on. It is foolish to assume anything else. And we're not saying that Cremo and Thompson are right. Not at all. What we're saying is there's another theory here, and here's the evidence for it. Look at it. What do you think? Right? Are you happy to dismiss it? Sure. Right? But see, the problem here is it's really problematic for people to grasp it, because you were brought up in a certain way, Dave. We all went to school. We were indoctrinated with certain ways. I mean, I was lucky in many ways because my grandfather was an extremely skeptical thinker. He was an agnostic, if anything. He was a free thinker. My grandmother was, I guess, Catholic, but she also laid cards, and she did astrology, which you shouldn't have. If you're Catholic, you're not allowed to do it, right? My mother really doesn't have much of a truck with religion. My father was a practicing Muslim. So I was exposed to, I guess, nothing that indoctrinated me from an early age. So I was allowed to develop my own thinking in many ways. And I remember very, very, very vividly, I remember in history, there was the path of history was up. It started, in the Stone Age, and then steadily it would go up. And there were, up and downs, but ultimately up. And that was how history was presented to me as a child. We started somewhere really low, with primitive knowledge, and then we worked our way up. That's what happened. And it just isn't the case, because we're getting evidence from everywhere, and this is not something you learn in school. You have to find it yourself. You have to go out there in the world and figure out what it's all about. And no one's going to help you either. Some few researchers exist, and they're great people, and we can only do our show here because we stand on the shoulders of giants, to paraphrase someone else. If we had to do this from scratch, we wouldn't get anywhere. There wouldn't be any content. But there are many, many questions that have not been answered, and we just don't know, because no one ever exposes us to it, Dave. No one ever exposes us to the truth that there are a whole bunch of theories out there, but very little truth, very little fact. We can hang our head on and say, this is exactly what happened, and this is exactly how it was. We don't know. We just don't know. If you go back to the ancient texts, especially the cuneiform writings that we can translate now, right? And you look at the Epic of Atrahasis, the Enuma Elish, whatever, or the Epic of Gilgamesh. Some of the concepts in there are phenomenal. And if you read them all, then you understand where the Old Testament came from, at least, the first couple of books from the Old Testament, Genesis, etc. Because it's clear that at least the Genesis account is like a child version of the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Atrahasis, if you really read it, right? You understand that this older text is much more detailed and richer than what we have today in the Old Testament. I'm not taking away from it. I mean, people, have built. I mean, we have got 2,000 years, Dave, of indoctrination, and we've got another 200 years of indoctrination in the scientific world, right? where and again, scientific thinking isn't that old, or at least the scientific method. It's a great method. The scientific method is great for all the things you can touch and weigh and cut apart and it's completely useless for any of the phenomena that we're encountering these days. The Skinwalker Range, again, I come back to it. The scientific exposure that it has, scientists that go there, they have to throw away their tool set because there are no repeatable experiments. They can't explain certain things. It doesn't make sense to them. You know, some of them said that they felt that the phenomenon was starting right back. We have to come up with a new scientific method.
Mickey.
Yeah,
no one can explain it today with scientific method.
No, it makes no sense at all. It's completely nonsensical. Because it shouldn't make a difference as to whether or not you measure something. Like if you do something, it should happen every time. This is the Newtonian universe. Even the Einstein even the universe of Einstein. If you push a rock down a hill, it'll roll down the hill every time, every single time, right? Whether you look at it or not makes no difference. This is the scientific view, like where you take the mind or the paranormal, we like to call it.
If it was a double slit experiment, when you roll a single rock down the hill, it turns into 100 rocks.
Yeah.
But it's invisible when you look. If you open up one eye real quick, you only see one rock.
Yeah. See, but you see again now. People say, "Oh no, you can't talk about consciousness." You have to talk about consciousness. That's right. As soon as a consciousness observes something, in fact, the measurement itself is not the thing. Whether or not the measurement is then seen by someone is the thing, because there's no other way for us to look at it. So a consciousness has to look at a result.
Yes.
Right. That's it. And at that point, the wave function collapses.
Mickey, if I had to say wave function, or if I had to say the AI had to determine which outcome it had to show us, because it got caught out. Finally, it's like the AI is finally caught out in this virtual environment that we live in, where it has to show you something, and it shows you the thing you expect to see, because that's how it's programmed. Only when we try to work out how the double slit experiment works, it shows us what we want to see, not what's happening. That's some crazy stuff, Mickey, right there.
Yeah. But see, this is the thing. But our minds had to be indoctrinated from the start. See, I go back to the hypothesis, because for me everything.
I wonder what someone who doesn't if they didn't expect it, what they see.
Exactly.
That's where you're going. I
know. So even the way our physical bodies are, we are born into this physical shell, biological, the body, and our two eyes look forward. Our feet point forward in the direction we call forward, but we are unidirectional creatures
because we have a front and a back because of that, right?
Yeah, bingo. Whereas imagine for a second that you weren't a creature like that. Imagine you were an octopus, but with eyes all around its head, right? Imagine that for a second, and you lived in the medium like water, or you could float near, like you weren't bound to the ground.
You could do that,
right?
Yep.
Yeah. But for your entire worldview would be different. But because our biology, and I believe our biology is actually intimately related to this worldview that is necessary for this world to exist, we are already biologically predisposed to think of a linear philosophy thought process, right? And I believe only greatly enlightened people could come up with circular kind of thought processes. That's why I've got great respect for the Eastern philosophies as well, because that's thinking completely outside the box for us, our biology. Because we look forward, we move forward, backwards, right? Left, right, up and down, whatever. But and we climb up, we climb down, and for us, this physical. The physical limitations that we have are completely determining our psyche, our mind. No matter how open the mind is that first enters the body, because children have to learn these limitations. Because I believe that what enters the body, call it the soul, your spirit, I don't care what you call it, your car, your chi, I don't care. But it enters your body, your physical body, and comes from a place where these limitations don't exist. And it has to learn. The child has to learn these limitations. And it takes the child a long time to learn these limitations, right? Because it doesn't get it.
We're just
because it doesn't make
avatars.
sense. Yeah, completely. So it is really important to understand that this world and us in it were created or have been created or came into existence for a very specific purpose. We still don't know what that purpose is. I do know, though, that we are in it, right? The conscious minds in these bodies, to have it exist in exactly this way. We are the constant observers of reality. We make sure that all the quantum states collapse into this reality. And the longer we go on, the quantum states become less and less fluid. What do I mean by this? Aboriginals believed, not just Aboriginals, that this was a dream, and the real life is when you actually are asleep, like when you're dreaming. And not they were the, I mean, North American Indians believed it, others as well, and in fact, the greatest task is for you to get out of this and go back into the real world, right? Go back home into nirvana, whatever you want to call it. And Jesus himself said that as well, believe it or not. If you read the Bible closely, which no one ever does anymore, everybody, Dave, is just regurgitating what they think they know, what they've been told by someone else. I ask people all the time, have you read this book? Have you read that? If it's a tenet of your belief, then maybe you should read it, don't you think? You have to, don't you think you should understand what it is you're saying? But my parents
believe
this.
in it.
Yeah. No, you don't. You don't know what you believe in. You have no idea what you believe in, right. And that's really what bothers me the most. But to go back to this world, our very biology determines the way we think, and then throughout history, there's always been this need to control the many, and it can be done by the few. And it's only ever the few that push us forward in our thinking as well. It's really interesting if you think about it. And it's not me that came up with this concept. If you look at Plato and his writing, especially the cave analogy, right? He said, we're being shown a fantasy, right? We're all, in a cave, bound, and we're looking at a cave wall, and all we see is shadows. And we think that's the real life. And then one of them escapes the cave, goes into the real world, comes back to tell his brothers and sisters, and what they do is they beat him to death. That's what happens. As soon as somebody's enlightened, sees the truth, comes back to tell everybody else about it, and we see this over and over again. Oh no, the earth is round. Well, you burn at the stake if you say it is. Oh, yeah, you know what? I don't think it's round.
The earth isn't the center of the solar system.
Yeah,
or the universe.
Burn at the stake. You're going to burn. And we haven't changed. Whenever someone comes along to push us over, right now we're living in a very interesting time. A lot of diverging ideas. In fact, in science, we're living at a time of great upheaval. We've got quantum mechanics on the one side, and we've got relativity on the other. And never the twain shall meet. And a lot of people will tell you, oh, this, that, and the other. There's a fundamental flaw in the fabric of reality. There's something fundamentally wrong with this world, right? Where we don't have a unifying. There's nothing that unifies.
The unified field theory, Becky, is a pipe dream. The two theories describe. One describes the way to interact in the space, and the other, which is quantum theory, it describes how the actual universe, what's made the universe. They're two different things. One is living in it and all the measurements and everything, and all the things you can do, and that's just the way it behaves. And the other one is actually what runs it. It's like you can't write a computer code to actually physically touch the way that the computer is working.
That's correct.
All right, so the two can't be the same. And that's what I see. That's the way I see it. And Mackie, what was the text that I sent you today? About
SMS or?
Yeah, an SMS. So this was about. I had a realization that I'm listening to music and
the meter the meter in stories for integrity. Music memory is a fundamental part of retention. Ceremonies with music has helped pass intact stories. Think about many songs you remember word for word, as opposed to how we paraphrase text we remember. I completely agree.
Yeah. So
the meter is critical.
I was astounded how many songs that I actually know, and it's got all the words. It's got to be thousands of them, but I can't remember word for word any block of text in anything. Nothing. Can I say, Mackie? Can you read? Can you recite the second the second paragraph from War and Peace.
No.
Go on, word for word. Your time starts now, right?
No.
No, right? And it's because there wasn't any music, there was no meter, there was no way of... Our brains are designed to remember it in such a way that it becomes solid and can't be broken by it.
Mhm.
It stays intact. It's the checksum on data. So I had that realization when my girls are singing some song and I'm singing a song, and I realized how many songs I know and how accurately I can recall them. And it might have been 30 years ago, as my partner said to me, it might have been 30 years ago I heard the song, but I still know all the words today. That is how powerful the combination of music to meter is.
Oh, completely. But that's how the ancients remembered all these epic poems,
That's how
right?
they
It was
pass
the
them
meter.
down.
And it was like a checksum. The meter was the checksum. Whereas if you actually misremembered it, the rhyme or the meter wouldn't make sense. And you had to remember it exactly. And but it was easier to remember because it was metered. There's the music. Thank you so much. Donate if you can. And please come back next week when we're going to talk about the hidden history of the human race by Michael Kramer. And we're going to go into the text. Very interesting stuff.
Take care and catch Jebez's awesome show after this one. Take care, everyone. See you next week.